9:37, 3/16, 2025. How's everybody doing? I went back to sleep after I was rudely interrupted and woke up to a bunch of insults. Finally back. I figured I'd talk about my dreams a little bit and who the heck's involved in my dreams. Um, I haven't had a lucid dream in several weeks. Um, and well, it's seems like a good time to touch on some of them. I have this dream where I'm riding in a car with like my mom and my sister, and like we're driving around the city, and it feels like Lapeer, but it's this like new city, and it's like there's this there's this whole I've got like a whole dreamscape in like a couple of different cities, and let's see, they're driving me around, right? So like I've got several dreams where I've got a lot of people that like I recognize. um yeah, there's a lot of dreams where I have that are completely lucid, and we actually share these dreams with other people. It's easy. It's a part of our human like nature. We're kind of like connected to this ethereal realm. Oh my god, I'm just like waking up. How's everyone doing? I gotta like reheat this. We're gonna just like schmooze today a little bit, and we're just gonna have some fun for a little bit here. But let's see what I can pull out. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Um, we got lots of people here trying to figure out what the heck's going on and who to listen to. And I don't blame them because shit's really confusing. And let's face it, we're not getting any younger. So now that we have these crystals, we also have like a ton of magic that goes into the crystals. And it seems to be this like real tongue-in-cheek, quiet area of psychedelia where people are able to actually access and like manipulate this dream realm. Not quite sure where to put everyone involved at on board with this because a lot of people don't want to give me the time of day. A lot of people are like, dreams are just meant for me. But like realistically, a lot of people know these dreams exist, um, and that people are starting to wake up to the fact that we have like technology that's been advanced beyond our wildest imaginations, and we basically have access to each other through the dream realm, and we can prevent people from doing stuff using their dreams. And what I'm pretty sure I've been able to effectively and efficiently do is pry open into some of these people's minds. Now, while I myself, I don't practice black magic. Really, I don't practice any dark magic. I got this kind of as an involvement. Necronomicon, shout out H.P. Lovecraft. I got that to be more involved with the people who are using it against me. Because it does seem like there is a growing trend between secular Christianity and Christianity after dark. And people really like their Kabbalic type, like hermetic charts and things like that lately, astrology, and all these other things that like people are engaging with in the right ways. However, this is after a long period of like a shadow time where people were shunned away from communities and churches forever dib and dabbling in this type of esoteric magic that keeps people vexed. But something must have happened within the past 10 years, because this is when I went from having access to music festivals and hippie culture and other things that ended up carrying our economy from east to west and then back again. And then it's sporadically all internationally. Like, it kind of got out of hand for people and really, really trendy. So now there's this general like wash of beliefs that really, 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 it starts with like elders. Weirdly enough, it starts with a lot of elders and like the heirlooms that they've gotten blessed. I believe it's like really heavily Catholically involved, and that like a lot of like Catholic people co-opted a lot of really evil trends, basically, and now they kind of have this thing where they talk freely about the evils of the world while they're like juggling this like this soothsayer type of swagger. So they've got this thing going on. Apparently everyone knows about it, and it's been big on it's been big in insider cultures for at least since Trump got elected, because before that the only time I'd see crystals were like in the hands of a lot of festival goers. So it makes sense that the most privileged got involved with this part of the culture that's super trendy. But also, I went to a lot of festivals and I wasn't formally introduced to this wave of trendiness. But that's because I'm a part of like, apparently I'm a part of tourism. And if you're not a local anywhere, you're a tourist everywhere. So because I never got to fit into Chicago and like the pin selling, I didn't get to the next level of pin selling, which was rock selling. And so like at once that went like all hobo and like bohemian, and it got really big into that whole like vein of existence, which now it's very popular out west, which always makes it more commercialized out here. So that's one big reason why here in Michigan it looks fishy, because I've been spearheading a lot of counterculture movements over the past 20 years. And this has been solely to be a part of music. For me, it's just basically I wanted to get popular enough to throw my own events and have people show up to them, and I get to get famous. This got replaced with trap music, and people stopped DJing things, and it turns out all the DJs that I wanted to network with ended up being just drug dealers. So there's no real talent to the press and play beat syncing culture of DJing. And that's exactly why it's so much vanity being like spruced up and then repackaged. But if there was science that was being utilized here between that back end of like, let's just roll up and round up on like the honors students that end up surpassing things like physics, biology, all these other A plus goody like brown nosing type preppiness, right? Because that's like a huge part, is the preps want to be with hot people, right? So they create a lot of like niche. They get a little eccentric, and that's why we have to go look at who has the most access to popular people. That's a lot of Catholics. Okay, Catholics are like a big staple, and Christians, but also people who get shunned and they become atheists. So there's a lot of like people who are like actually like they have a little bit of room to talk about things like art, culture, all these other things because they end up on the extremities and the fringes of society. So it doesn't make sense that a bunch of women in Michigan got somewhere before I did when I laid forth the foundation for the platform that they're able to utilize today as content creators. Now, I've been given the slip several times by family, by friends, by so many people who didn't let me say what it was that I was going to endeavor on or embark upon. And that led me in this weird place where people are not accepting of me. Okay? So this is another part that I can't really get past is like how in the world are all of these like staples that I keep getting caught up on, and people are like, no, that's not how you practice the magic. But realistically, it's like exactly what I was taught by some of these people before they started throwing crystals in with it and being like, well, we can do this and then we'll just like put it in the crystal and then we'll go collect crystals and then put all these good times into the crystals. If that's what's going on and that's all that we kind of missed in between like my residency at North Coast, because I went to the first like 5 North Coasts. I went to the first one, the second one. I think like might have skipped like the third or the fourth one, but then I went back to like 5 or 6. Okay, I've been to like several of these. Okay, and like nobody was like doing that. Everyone was just partying and dancing. 949. No one was bringing up angel numbers or synchronicities. I don't even recall that many readings or like tarot readers or like fortune tellers or all I recall is a lot of hipsters walking around trying to network with their phones because that's what people actually were looking into. Excuse me. That is what was people looking at, just getting faster than the community of people that were utilizing phones, smartphones, and we're sort of past that point. That was over 10 years ago. So like that's where like a lot of things don't really, they've been disguised. Since then, a lot of these things have been disguised, excuse me. These things have been, and I'm like re-uncovering them as an adult. That's like now no longer as popular, or I'm like so popular now that I've started to gain haters. And like I've never really been one to collect people who don't want to be with me. So this is the catch 22 of it. Is like there's a slew of these other things that kind of wrap into everything. One of those things is once trap music came in and Vine kind of cleansed a lot of things, it ended up swinging a lot of musicians and DJs into the video game world. So now we have this counterculture of people who basically gravitate from DJ, like cool underground counterculture, and they try to swing it over to my dad, basically. My dad is a old school hardcore gamer, and he plays so much video games. That's all he does. And in fact, my mom's basically like given up on trying to be like with my dad sometimes because he's so busy playing video games. So if there's this thing going on where they co-opted a bunch of crystals
and decided to keep them all to themselves because they started figuring it out on this side of the fence where video games, build your own PC culture became like more prevalent, then it makes sense that all the people who I used to be friends with zipped their lips when they were like, you'll figure it out on your own. And people like my ex-girlfriend, Kate, who's now dead because of this crystal magic and telepathy and witchcraft synchronicity. But if there's some weird Illuminati stuff going on, then it makes sense that like someone bought into the world stage from the underground into the world stage, and now it changed a lot of things so they don't let everybody into this part of like psychedelia, because it can create this benevolence and like lucidity that can come along with being able to perceive people's minds. So while Sadie is upstairs right now, firm example, she just said she's complaining that I'm talking about it like this at all. But nobody can hear her. This is the next part. She's not actually talking with her throat, with her voice. She's like thinking it real loudly. So, but Sadie doesn't do psychedelics. Sadie's, as far as we know, Sadie's never tried psychedelics. Okay? And she's not the type to go exploring for it because she doesn't like crowds of people. I've talked to her once about this, and she's like, no, I don't want to go to music festivals. I don't like concerts because I don't like big crowds of people, which is great. I mean, I kind of get where you're coming from. I don't like being around people in public and judged and this and that. But like, this is a huge part of how what I did was I went from being a drum major, okay, to a like raver drum major, and I would get like the whole audience to like dance and like fist pump and stuff to the beat. And every like 16 to 32 bars, I'd bounce people out, cut people off, and get people onto the next person. So I'd be putting groups of people on blast just so like people had community. And so like I'm a pretty big staple in the underground like music scene. And people were there. People saw me having my the best time of my life, and it could have been too much. The thing about this is, just because though I did gas up the festival, it could have been this thing where you're not supposed to just like be dancing at the music festival. No. Dancing's like a side like favor of the music festival. What the main attraction is a bunch of suburban kids coming in and like basically moving around time, so they can like fill it with more popularity, more shows, because a lot of people were lying about how they were getting like shows and stuff and how they became bigger DJs. Is because like I came back to Michigan and I met some of the Forest kids, freaking Tori and Grant, freaking Early Grant, I think something like that. Yeah. Anyways, two real big like drug dealers. They were popular for dealing drugs. Okay, but like they also co-opted DJ and they wanted to be like head DJ. So like if that's the case, then it's a huge part of like just dealing drugs. So like if tarot reading and like drug dealing are like this new like super saiyan like combination of like accesses that you're allowed to like utilize, show off, and then people give you the penance of like, hey, you're in the gang. Okay, here's what's going on next. Our crew's gonna bring the crystals over here. Your crew's gonna go deal the benzos. And my crew's gonna bring the DJ music and they're just like kind of coming up with their own crime syndication of like quiet crimes, but like also victimless crimes. But it's at the freaking expense of like the nerds or something like that. Then it makes sense that like once I decided, because what I decided to do was co-opt festival like community into a lot of the Comic Con and anime and conventions, because that's where you'll find more money. That's where you'll find some more like valid forms of entertainment on top of that like have object permanence. Because when you go to a music festival, you can't really take all of it back with you. And people, but that's not why you go, and people get that. But also, people are getting real picky. And it's because people are being told to like do less in America. So if there's this weird barrier to entry on, now this brings us to this kind of, not for a second, but let me go ahead and break it into the holistics community. Because if the festival community broke way through to the holistics community, and that eventually tried to spiffy itself up into like computer culture, then it makes sense that there's this small like part of the formula that allows right wingers into more holistics by like lying about the placement of where said function goes. So like for example, if these crystal communities got popular because crystals have like surface area, meaning like they resonate. If these crystals are like up against like an 8 ohm speaker and they fucking do something else while the vibration and the air molecules are like wrapping around these things, and that once we take them and we like put them on our like faces or shit like that, wouldn't it make sense that like this part of the holistic community would glob onto it as healing, and then also then reinvent a lot of old types of like holistic Freemasonry, like rocks and stuff like that, where there's an agenda and it goes from just being this like free-form thought processy to an actual like mapping of function, and it gives meaning to a community that didn't have any. But then it's being Ponzi schemed and people are making money off of this trend. Doesn't it make sense that very similarly actual geologists and scientists would like come in from the top, from the highest of nerd places, and be like, oh well, that happens more with your PC builds, and like we've all decided that we're going away from PC, from Macintosh to PC, because look at my game setup. Now I have 5 computer screens, and all of a sudden it starts to look less like a hippie and more like a office jockey, over the fact that somebody made enough money to have sex with a popular person, and that popular person decided to put more of their popularity onto the undesirable office jockey and never leaves the office. So it's really just this really petty scheme that leaves a lot of people excluded, especially if you're not willing to make the jump from music and DJing to computer gaming and PC building. And right in between sits women and money. Then it makes sense that we're here and the women have a role on this part of the function in between what's popular and what's sacred. So if like there's like this missing link and it turns out to be a bunch of boring Catholic women and Christian women in America that kind of like don't add as much because what they're looking for is vanity. And they want, and that's where everything is changing, is that everything looks good, right? It looks good, but not everything feels good. And that sounds like popular girls fighting each other. Is everything looks good, but not all of it feels good. And if it's us versus them type of deal, and somebody's utilizing the clicky, they're using like gossip and rumors and clickiness to make rocks more functional as like capacitors. Because let's face it, the only thing these things are actually that good for are like just show. People get that. These things are just for show, which is kind of like why put so much meaning behind it? Oh, it's because it does function as some sort of a trinket that allows people to straight up peer into people's dreams and frequencies, because there's nobody here in my bedroom, in my apartment, but yet every day I'm being confronted with somebody who wants me to look crazy. And that has, and they cannot figure out how I got in the club without any of the like P's and Q's on it, and why it happened after a big incident where I end up in jail due to a bunch of fraudulent like cat calls. Okay, I ended up in, and it's like the most frail argument, because there's no, again, in this case, there's nobody there. It's her word against mine. It's not a very good case, and it should have gotten thrown out. But now we're like 3 rounds of missing the court date. And in fact, this last court date, I was gonna go, and the voices told me to stay home. And I know they're not just voices in my head. I know I'm not crazy. I know that I have high functioning ESP, because on my 25th birthday, I started utilizing this telepathy on my family. And they couldn't believe it. They were like, "Were you just in our dreams communicating to us for the whole night? Like, we knew you were there, but like, is that real?" And I was like, "Hey guys, it's real. How's it going? My family still doesn't know how this stuff works." And they've been co-opting it outwardly and being like, "Oh, I've had that happen to me once." But they won't tell you that it's because of me. They're all, "Oh, well, it must be because of this rock. I'm in high denial of my son having any telepathy or high-functioning clairvoyancy. And I gotta put it somewhere else where it's useful. You're saying I could put that in this rock? I'm sold. I get to displace my undesirable son and put them over to the freaking ghetto, because I can do that. I can play video games. I can have a rock. I like to relax with a rock." And if that's what's happening here, then it makes sense that the homeopathic community came in and co-opted a bunch of stuff that was kind of my science. Sound and wavelength dispersion is sort of something I went 7 years to college to learn about audio theory and the general mechanics and acoustics of your ear. Tragus, your freaking eardrum, and your cochlea, your gosh darn freaking binaural beats going alongside of all of this. Okay, so if this is just some weird homeopathic remedy for people to access a realm of psychedelics, but they're not willing to take the psychedelics, it's just some old-fashioned way for people to get to this, and they're not disclosing that, yeah, you could take acid or mushrooms or Molly, and you end up with the same technology, and in fact, it heightens the sense of how much you can pull from homeopathically from these rocks, and it heals your inside, and then somebody's using that against me. It makes sense that it's going to be women who are scapegoating me, thanks to Cassie and Mars, and now Sadie and goddamn Cat and Sam next door. All these women, right, because they are women, but like also I spun the block on these trans girls and had them become more popular to the actual like homeopathy that comes along with this into the music, from the music to the PC culture, but they only see numbers in people and value in numbers of those people. Then it makes sense that they would utilize my popularity and my lifestyle against me, especially because when Mars came in and they started doing all this witchcraft and esoterica, they spat in my face when I basically, they didn't actually, but figuratively, she spat in my face about this shit. And I was like, yo, I like practiced Hinduism for like a few years to just make sure that I wasn't like going something too non secularly. So it makes sense that like they're co-opting a lot of spirituality as like glamour culture, and it's being used against people much like a PC. Oh, I have a PC. See, my games have higher frame rate. I have better graphics cards. You see, they're using that as a status symbol against other people. But we're all just kind of noobs because anyone who's like younger than a millennial has very little like experience on what the game board looked like before they entered into the adult world. Then it makes sense that of course the boomers are going to want to help those kids. They saw how horribly everything went when they tried to help me, and they couldn't figure it all out because nobody actually talks to me. They all want to go around me. So heaven forbid you miss anything important on me, because you're going to end up walking right into the lion's den of something I just did a whole lot of bullshit to make sure I could protect my own family from some of the people that I was watching out at the music festivals. Okay, and if it turns out there's a whole realm of esoterica I was supposed to be exposed to at a much younger age, but my parents practice a archaic form of religious shunning, then it makes clear sense that I'm being fronted as a powerhouse of magic, and it's being exploited, and it's being zorped out one by one, utilizing a lot of dark manipulation, because we got to go back to the dark magic of it all. If this is black magic and people want to do harm to one another, I practice shamanism. So shamanism, and I'm a dualist. So it brings in, I'm a Christo Buddhist. You know, it brings in a lot of this dark and light, heavy energy. And I've survived through a lot of people's worst nightmares, okay? People deliberately put me in their worst situations so it wouldn't happen to them. This is how nepotism and narcissism form the barriers of protection against object permanence. And if you have more objective like permanence, we don't want to see that, because it would make us look bad after how much dirt we shoveled onto your dead name. Okay, so innately, if this leads to people peering through your eyeballs, so because somebody can hear my thoughts, it would not surprise me if somebody can literally see through my eyes. Or just like my aura. Somebody's messing with my sacral and my throat chakra. I often feel it when people are like being assholes. Okay? Excuse me. Very often when people are not willing to confront me, I notice a lot of the behavior that leads to them not wanting to be my friend. But this goes another level, because if they're looking for people who are mad at me, it's easy to gang stalk and manipulate somebody who already doesn't like somebody to do something bad towards that person. This is all I'm picking. This is all that the women here and the Mean Girls Club has been able to teach me. Okay, that they're petty, they're jealous, they function out of anger. The simple solutions that have nothing to do with this shit. Okay, simple solutions that have nothing to do with that, and everything to do with how you carry yourself, because that's really the lasting fact, is what did you actually do once this information surfaced. And if you just deliberately said, well, once the information surfaced, I knew I could use that shit against somebody. And we're clearly missing the line of legacy that would point to the proper kind of people that are basically holding that wall adjacently towards. So if you're just stifling somebody, if you're creating stagnation in somebody's life because you perceive them to be above you, you've bought into the agenda that everybody's competing. And that's got to be the most, like, Chad brained, like, mega biff, like, frat boy, prep jock kid thing in the world, is that there needs to be stark competition, and you need to find the person's weakness. If this is a weird, like, right-wing agenda that's been filtering in behind enemy lines, basically, because let's face it, who but all the swag fags ended up being jocks? Right, the swag fags that you would see walking around with, like, swag hats and, like, Jersey Shore frickin' shirts and all of this fist bump culture that ended up lying to me. This is the next thing. All of these jocks hated techno music, okay? All these jocks made fun of me forever listening to techno music. And so, who do I find fucking each other at my favorite Skrillex shows, but a bunch of popular jocks and freaking all of that? This is a long time coming agenda of people who are utilizing excess against other people. Something I did in earnest to help my family go through me to understand parts of the counterculture so they would give me help to make better art. Now, I'm sitting here in an apartment that I cannot pay with another freaking thing for jail I didn't even fucking earn. I was, like, at home listening to these voices bully me. One morning I called after a whole year's worth of being framed as a womanizer and now as a pedophile. Dude, this is a weird town. Lansing has a lot of shortcomings. Yes, they're very vain, they're very cosmetic, and they're very religious around object permanence. And that if you mess up, you don't deserve it. But, like, dude, I'm being singled out by women who are attracted to me now. But they're attracted to me because, like, because I can control my anger. They're attracted to me because I'm, like, makes sense. Like, when I get angry, it makes sense. And that's why they're attracted to me. I don't like it. It's very toxic. And it says everything about why I left women in the first place. Because I made sure that I wasn't going to have women coming into my life trying to change me as a person when I had a whole adulthood to live at my own leisure. And now it's being reinforced upon my well-being just as a test to see if whether or not I could. And when Mars came in, they said, you know, I make people, like, grow up before they're supposed to. It's, like, a big part of what I do. I was like, please don't do that to me. Like, no, I just do this. And, like, straight up, if Grace Draminsky's like a part of the Mean Girls Club and sees something she cannot have, she's going to go the extra mile. And that's something you got to earn by facing your fears. Again, this seems like something that could have been dealt with much other professional ways, but all the ways that are, it's like mom. I keep going around, and then there's mom. Keep going around, there's my sister. Right, I keep going around. It's some other woman in control of this part. So if there's this part with the vaginal exchange here on menstrual like pituitary, and that it accesses a small part of this magic in a slightly different key than what it was that I was trying to do as a man for 25 years of my life, then it makes sense that these women are also like 25 years out of date from what's actually already happened on the planet because of me. But because people don't like to talk to me, they're afraid to talk to me, people have created a bad name for me and then place it squarely on me using authorities. It makes sense that people are basically just too busy to actually talk about how we have telepathy and we can hear each other's thoughts, because heaven forbid you break the secret seal and like now everybody's, don't tell you, shh, I got a rock that can read your brain, don't tell anybody because I just bought it from a store, and they're all just in this cult like atmosphere. Then it makes sense that nobody's on the pulse. So like look at those around you who actually put you on to this homeopathic new age philosophy, and I guarantee you it's like it ends up becoming this like illuminatic thing. I guarantee you it's like whatever you think you have that's of power, that's like a crystal, I guarantee you the fucking government has like a fucking cluster bomb version of it that's like beats out any other freaking small hobbyists like dreams. And that's why I gotta wonder, like, what is the access here being at the state capitol on illuminatic energy and power, because everything's so far since 2022, everything's been so over the top staged against this part of the agenda where if you know what's going on, you get cut free from this part of society because you've earned the right to do so. But we can't completely cut you loose because we know how much it could change society. And if you're changing society, you're not us. We're the government. So now it turns into this thing where everybody's got to get their own freaking calendar before anybody else does. It's caused me to have to start PARACONOMY over here and get the books, get the magic on the books. You see, PARACONOMY Inc. This is my legal status of how it is that if I've had history rewritten against me, that with a little bit of love, we can just kind of glance in here and say, oh, you got your legal Zoom. Here's the bylaws and the Article 5 forms of like your stock shareholders exchange rate. Okay, I've got a whole slew of other things. Look. I am classically ordained here as a soothsayer and a shaman. Okay, I have a doctorate for a life coach, for doctorate for metaphysics. I've got freaking degree for goddess. Look, I went out of my way, and now I'm a Jedi Knight. Okay, so like as small as these universal church life credentials were, they added into anything that now has to do with all of my court cases that we now have to put onto the books as something that happened outside of my control. And it was very, very, I have had very magical experiences that were not taken into account as to prove my innocence of whatever her word over my word had to do with it, any of it at all. And now, because this has gotten so out of hand, my parents think I'm a bad person. And so, because my parents think I'm a bad person, they cut me out of the inheritance completely. They don't want me to have a dime of their inheritance because they're afraid that I'm just going to use it to fucking, well, they know that I want to use it to get a lawyer, and they don't want to get sued by me. Even though they know that they could just, dude, they don't want to get sued by me. Neither do these. And when these are all working for them to keep me down, it makes sense that Sadie's just upstairs, also slinging around a rock or two, and somehow connected to my sister through, I'm assuming, Malia Ginger, my little cousin, because she's the closest in age. So that's kind of why I'm assuming my little cousins threw me under the bus without even, just because my mom told them I was a bad boy. Don't talk to Alex, he's a bad boy. And now nobody in my family actually talks to me, and they don't really know me like that, but none of them have bothered to do it. I believe that there's a lot of people leveraging things to create narratives about me to put me in jail at this point. And if they're going to such lengths to incriminate things and like re-angle actual events to make it sound like it was something that I did facetiously or like with malintent. So like this is the game. And if we're not disclosing alien technology, if we're not willing to be like, look, these rocks and these seances aren't just of this planet. They actually resonate with other things outside of our planet. And people are like, no. It's just Lord Cthulhu, it's Satan and Jesus. Don't you understand? But like, we all fucking know that there's a little bit of sci-fi being peppered in. I mean, listen to dubstep. Have you ever listened to dubstep? This is how all this shit got popular in the first place. I don't think I've ever heard anything more robotic and alien than like some Excision and freaking Rusko and shit. Sounds more alien than it ever sounded witchcraft. So now I'm stuck looking at this and being like, nah, I know what I've seen. I know what I've seen is real. I know what I've been around is real. And I know that it's not just like astrology. And they want to be like, look, it's from the stars and the other planets, and those connect to the rocks. And it's some like over convoluted explanation. Just over convoluted explanations, and wanting it to go from being this like super sleek plastic design into this, I have these heirloom marijuana that's gonna help you see the ethereal realm. And it's like this really bad new age, like kitschy niche community that has no sibilance over actual physics and like the world, the realms that we actually like. But we just want the tasteful version. If you're not a library lesbian or a book school girl, we don't want you to have any say in our community. That's for me. And I'm the one starting it. If I started the platform at all by going to audio school and learning about sonic resonances and displacement on frequencies, and nobody's listening to me, it's just like Tesla. It's just like Da Vinci. It's like all the greats who've ever invented anything. And then they go on to live terrible lives, die, and then all of their experiences are re-co-opted upward into people who like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that guy has a better life after he's dead. And they wait till you're dead to like zorp off all your good professional stuff and like then they make the claim, oh, I always loved that guy. So so that's what I'm dealing with today at Paraconomy Inc. I have dreams about this stuff with people in my dreams. Black people, white people, brown people, Mexicans, Italians, all in my dreams. But also, now I have a few dreams thanks to all this hyper witchcraft that led to me discovering some other planets and other like species of humans and aliens and stuff like that. But everyone's like, you're crazy. You're crazy. We have rocks, if that's what's going on, then it makes sense that everyone got caught red-handed lying square to my face and stabbing me in the back several ways till Sunday in order to make sure that I end up homeless, displaced, or dead and in jail. Deal with yourselves, people. This is why I warn you. There are people out here doing this, okay, maliciously. They're out here being a freaking pill just to weigh you down so they see what happens while they get more. It's really bad. Protect yourselves, okay? Don't succumb to a lot of this gaslighting and bully culture because it is freaking straining our natural law and order. And I guarantee you, these people are out there right now picking pennies up just to figure out how the hell they work. And they'll pick your pocket